Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cassandra Williamson Show. Tonight, we're going to have an attorney from down in Florida on talking about HB 1233, plus a couple other things down in Florida. All those ID laws that the DeSantis administration is seeking to revert back to antiquity, back to the, the Dark Ages version of stuff. And anyway, Rusty will be on a little bit. He let me know that he's going to be a little bit late. So basically, though, that's what we want to talk about. We're going to spend some time talking about those bills and kind of give you some advice on how to move forward and what to do and that kind of thing, because there's so much out there right now that we need to be prepared for, need to be thinking ahead about and getting yourself situated for it, because, these things are coming. And right now you're seeing a lot of what I'm calling like the shotgun blast of all kinds of attacks against minority Americans. And they just want to see what will stick to the wall. And so, but if they can get some, then next year they'll go back and do it again and see if they can strengthen it and do it again. And as long as they have the power, they're going to continue doing that. And it's coming right out of the playbook from the Heritage Foundation. So we're going to talk more about this in just a minute. But for now, let's roll the intro. Hello. Welcome back, everyone. Today's topic of conversation will be bills down in Florida. Now, let me make it very clear. There are bills all across this country that match exactly what's going on down in Florida. Some are more egregious than that, and some are less so, but at some point they're all going to go in that direction. There's model legislation they're testing out somewhere just to see what will stick, okay? So we're going to talk about HB 1233, which is the bill that has to do with your identification, driver's license, stuff like that, issued by the state of Florida. And Rusty will be on here shortly. Rusty Mead is a good friend of mine from down in Jacksonville, Florida, who happens to be an attorney down there, practicing attorney. And so he's going to be on a little bit to talk with us about it. And I'm looking forward to that. So some of the things we do know that are taking place is that West Virginia is doing some stuff very similar to what Florida is doing. So is Utah and Kansas and Nebraska, not Nebraska, but Missouri and other states are out here all doing the same thing. And, like I said, they just want to see what's out there, see what they can do and how much they can get stuck to the wall. Before we jump into all that, let's make sure we have a disclaimer so that you know that all the opinions expressed here, whether they're mine or Rusty's, these are opinions, okay? They hold no legal validity. You can't turn around and use them in a court of law because, these are our opinions. That's all they are. It's our opinions. And we do not necessarily represent any particular organization, group, agency, department within the federal government or anything like that. Hello? That's all it is, okay? So, and if you're under the age of 18, please leave. Please leave. No one under the age of 18 allowed in this program. So right now I'm waiting for Rusty to come in. So what I'm going to do is kind of share a screen with you of the bill text for Florida H 1233. Hold on a minute, and we'll jump right over to that and present, share screen. Hold on. Here we go. Is that it? Yes. Good. All right. So what you're looking at right now is the text from that bill, HB 1233, as it was introduced down in Florida. Now, before we go getting into all that stuff, the first thing I want you to know is this is a partisan bill, entirely partisan bill. It's now in the Health and Human Services Committee, and we can look at the detail over here for this. Let's see, Health and Human Services Committee and the Florida Legislature. All right, and it's going to define all kinds of terms and remove others, and that's the whole idea. Hold on one second. Turn off your phone, Mom.
Oh, there's that again.
Okay. Anyway, so let's see, where are we? It's now in Health and Human Services, referred to Judiciary on the 13th, referred to Infrastructure Strategies Committee, referred to Health and Human Services, first reading on the 9th, and filed on the 4th of January of this year, 2024. And you can find all this information, by the way, and we'll copy it and put it over in our comment section. And let me go over here and comments. I'll put it down at the bottom. So you can go check this thing out and read it yourself. Don't take our word for what's in here. Go read it yourself and, dig into it. Check it out. Now let me go over here and back to the text of the bill. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Let's go back one. Okay. And let's see, it's general bill by, I guess it was Representative Black. Yes. All right, glossary of terms, track this bill. I'm doing all of that kind of stuff. Okay, so the purpose is to redefine the Florida Civil Rights Act, revise provisions related to remedies for unlawful discrimination to include protection on the basis of sex rather than gender, and prescriptions for, okay, I already talked about that. So as soon as Rusty gets in here, we'll just jump right into all of it. So what's been going on today otherwise? I don't want to spend any time taking up what Rusty will be saying and talking about, but I'm going to stop sharing on that screen, go back over here. And if you want to put a comment over in the comment section, please do. We can talk about that. Also know this too, that the nominations for president for TDVA and TDVA Action Group have closed out, and the chair of the Oversight Committee has indeed released the names of those who accepted the nomination to run for president and gave all the necessary information, filed all the proper paperwork to run for president of the organization. And of the names that were submitted, some were not, either they weren't members or they were on active duty. There was one or two on active duty, I believe. And we can't have that because that would be represented by Sparta. And we want to make sure that that's a clear distinction there, because that's what their job is over at Sparta. So anyway, we've got two people left who are running for president of the United States. I sound like I'm on Fox and Friends right now. With New Hampshire primaries tomorrow night. Voting will start very shortly. As a matter of fact, the two final candidates, their names are out there. That would be Sarah Colasanto and Dr. Amaya Deakins. And those two people are running for president of the organization. Over the course of the next 2 weeks, that's when the voting window will be open for the 2-week period, so that anyone, when I release the form information, the ballot information for you, you'll be able to go in there and cast your vote for whomever you would like on that list. Okay. Nominations is over. There's no write-in on this, but there's two candidates who actually qualified to run for the office of president, Amaya Deakins and Sarah Colasanto. So I've spent this past weekend with Sarah Colasanto. I'm going to be spending the next 3 days essentially with Dr. Deakins. So Dr. Deakins is going with me, and she's riding up with me up to DC to participate in the event in front of the Heritage Foundation headquarters in Washington. So yeah, I'm going to have an opportunity to get to meet Dr. Deakins in person. Yay, that hasn't happened yet. So two wonderful people. I'm hoping that everyone can go out there and let me see. Okay. And vote. Let us know who you want to run the organization. And this office of president, that will not come back up for election again until the next cycle, which is not in March of this year because of the way things have had to work with the organization, organizing it and getting it all set up and moving forward, and still some details worked out and all that. There's a lot of stuff going on. And so we're talking about next year in 2025, some of the elected offices will be up for election and the others will not. We want to make sure it's on a rotating basis like that, much like the House and the Senate, or the Senate especially. So, every 3 years in the Senate, well, every so many years here, we want to do the same kind of recycle so that we get fresh people with some of the old people in. And I'm hoping that the leaders who come in will not stay in that office forever and ever. We don't want to create a dynasty. What we want to be able to do is, create an organization that's representative of our veterans and their families and allies and providers and stuff. So that's what this is all about. And just as soon as this show is over, I'm hoping I'll be able to send out a notice to everyone about the access to the ballot. All right. That'll be going out to our membership. So with that, I'm still waiting for Rusty. I know that he is a practicing attorney from down in Jacksonville. I know that he's got a lot going on. He and I have spoken, well, not as frequently in the past 6 months as we had prior to that, but we do spend some time talking, a lot of topics to talk about. So we're just waiting out for that. One thing that I talked about earlier today was a comment that was made over the weekend by Dr. Roberts, Kevin Roberts, president of the Heritage Foundation. And he had spent, a day or so in Davos, Switzerland at the World Economic Forum conference. They had invited him to come over and sit on a panel. And he was talking about that with Pete Hegseth over on Fox and Friends Sunday morning. And Dr. Roberts said, figuratively, he would love to be able to take that 2x4 and hit some liberals upside the face with that. And then he said, this is war. Well, yeah, definitely an incitement to violence. Say there, Dr. Roberts. Right. I don't want that from any of us to you, whomever. We're not seeking any kind of violence. All we want to do is just to be heard and seen. We don't want to have this colorblind idea that that Heritage and Chris Rufo and different ones keep talking about. No, you don't really mean colorblindness. But by the way, that's a utopian idea that you just cannot accomplish. When you open your eyes, if you're not physically colorblind, you're not colorblind. You see the mosaic, the tapestry of the world around you. You see it. To say otherwise would be lying to yourself. That's just not the way things work. What you really mean when you say that is you want assimilation. You want all those minorities down there who are making so much noise that you can't really, you don't want to hear. All those minorities, populations, including LGBT people, you just want them to, do like the three monkeys. You got your see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. Well, in this case, you're saying hear no minorities, see no minorities, and speak nothing from us. You just want us to go away and hide into the corner. Well, no. And as my friend Sarah Cassandra described it, rather than this being a melting pot, America being a melting pot, we're more like a mosaic. That's her description of it. I call it like a tapestry that's constantly being sewn together with multiple colors, beautiful design. And when you step back away from it, Sarah's perspective again, what you see is when you pull away, you see this big American flag or the Constitution or something in there. Up close and personal, you start seeing all the threads of different colors and all the different identities and nationalities and ideologies that this represents. You can't deny that as the fabric or the mosaic of who we are. And to say that colorblindness is what you want to do, well, that's just, that's Pollyannish utopianism. But the challenge is that the people over there doing all of this, the people doing it, pushing this, Dr. Roberts and the Heritage Foundation and Heritage Action, and all of the 80 plus organizations that have joined in and collaborated with them to create Project 2025, their mandate for leadership. All those people, all those organizations, their idea is that this should be, everybody should just assimilate into their idea of what America is because, they represent the majority population. They want it to look like that. But it's also, they want it to be theocratically aligned as well. They want to be able to control who comes in doing what and saying what and when and all that kind of stuff, as long as, you follow their line. And you've got certain standards for theocracy that you want to impose on people, and you're pushing the authoritarianism. But I want to make it clear that we are opposed to all forms of authoritarianism, regardless of how strongly you may say those things or believe those things or push them. I don't care if it's coming from the right or the left. If it's authoritarianism is anathema to democracy, especially to a limited democracy like a constitutional republic. I mean, that's just anathema to us. It should be, but yet Heritage is trying to force their idea, and trying to make the whole country colorblind and assimilated within this whole idea over here. And, it's just complete denial of what a limited democracy or constitutional republic is all about. And so we're calling them out on it. So we're going to be up there. Dr. Deakins and I and several others will be up there. And we are going to be standing there talking about in front of Heritage Foundation, letting them know we're here as veterans. We're going to stand up there and be seen, be heard. And, they're going to recognize that we're around. And so far, they've been ignoring us, deliberately ignoring us. And all of you know that. If you're out here in the world, you know that. That you will not see professionals who happen to be transgender on the news shows on the right. You will only see the idiots. And yeah, like I do, there are idiots in our own community. We're going to have to start policing all that stuff. Like I said today at noon in the noontime show, we've got to clean our own house, basically. And we don't want a bunch of people going around here pulling the Rose Montoya bull crap, okay? Or anything like that. We don't need anybody out there trying to bully someone else into accepting for you. And there's Rusty coming in at the bottom. I see Rusty. Hey, I'm going to add you to the stage, Rusty. Well, look at that. How are you? Got your tie on. You're all set. I love it.
Yep, tied it myself.
I like it. How are things going down look at it in the back. Wait a minute. I got distracted. Captain America on the wall.
Oh, yeah, I hung some stuff up finally.
I see that. I'm glad your place is coming together.
Yeah, mess over here. Yeah.
The only thing missing would be one of your T-shirts that you collect.
Oh yeah, my shirts. Yeah, I've got those. Got my recent one I purchased.
Okay.
Mickey Mouse.
Okay.
I could have worn it today, but I decided to go a little serious, a little more serious.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Oh, look at that. I know it right there.
Yep.
Jeez. Well, I'll tell you something. I'm going to introduce Rusty to the people watching, and this is recorded, by the way, and be available elsewhere. But Rusty, I don't know. I've never met someone who knows how to use a slapstick on an alligator.
A slapstick? Oh no, that's a
bang stick or
bang stick. Yeah, a bang stick.
Yeah, I don't know which one it is. I'm thinking, really? You want to go alligator wrangling? No, I'm not going. How you doing? Tell me about yourself today.
Yep. Me?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm doing all right. I mean, it's Monday. It's been a Monday.
Oh, yeah.
I've been running from pillar to post today.
Oh.
So, just, doing the usual. People not showing up when they're supposed to. People showing up when they're not supposed to,
Yeah, such is life. Right?
Silly questions and expecting smart answers. But, hey.
Who would do something like that?
People who are trying to con insurance companies.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So,
did I say that? I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah. You said that out loud, but you want me to snip it out of this recording? No. And I want to say this again now that Rusty's here as well. As a disclaimer going across the bottom of the screen, the opinions expressed here are mine or Rusty's. They are strictly ours. They don't particularly belong to any particular agency, organization, department, or whatever. These are our opinions, folks. So we're going to jump into some of the stuff taking place down in Florida. And by the way, I've been telling people all along that Florida is by no means an island when it comes to these kind of bills. They're showing up everywhere. These are pieces of model legislation that's showing up all across the country. And somebody is not upset, or somebody is upset.
Yeah, I'm about to okay. Yeah. All right, come here.
Aha.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to try to keep him under control so that we have fewer disturbances, maybe, perhaps.
Okay. So how do you want to approach this? What's your game plan on this? I've got 1233 pulled up and the text version behind me. I think it is in one of my tabs. But
is that the one you discussed earlier?
Yeah, that's the one about the IDs. And It's mostly insurance, but the very
Yes,
first part.
so to address the insurance part, I mean, I guess I can address the insurance part first because that's kind of easiest, I guess. And
Yeah.
that has mainly to do with the insurance companies. I mean, really, it's about whether or not, he can regulate the commerce of the insurance company. And for the most part, it's like basically they're saying, if you're going to offer gender affirming care, then you have to offer gender affirming care that includes detransition.
Mhm.
So, okay, fine, whatever. Which I think it should do. I mean, because some
Granted.
people
Sure.
inaccurately, misdiagnosed and had care done because there are professionals out there who are not, trained appropriately, who are practicing in this area and
Right.
are doing things for people because that's what they want
Mhm.
and not really making sure that they follow certain generally accepted, principles as it concerns providing that type of care to people.
Mhm.
So, I mean, if you're going to have to, sometimes a plastic surgeon will send someone to a counselor for when they want a facelift when they think it's appropriate. So I don't think it's inappropriate for them to suggest the same when there's gender affirming care. You want to make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. So, not to say that I'm suggesting that everybody has to go see a counselor. I'm just, so I don't want to open up that ball of wax, but sometimes it's appropriate that certain measures be taken, and if you're a well-heeled professional and you're, knowledgeable about the area you're practicing in, you should know exactly how to ask the right questions to identify what's really going on with someone.
Yeah. It seems to me that some parts of that insurance section also suggested that they were tightening up the rules for what you had to present.
That part I think is is a bit problematic, and I don't know that that's going to hold. There's current legal litigation going on right now as it concerns the prior bills they've passed about the notice requirement and who can do what. Like, for instance, right now, nurse practitioners and physician's assistants cannot provide gender affirming care directly without, that you have to have a physician doing it, right? So they can handle a component of it, but as far as like diagnoses and recommendations and stuff, it has to go through, an actual physician. And that's meant to be, an impediment to gender affirming care to those who are in need of it, because oftentimes they're well aware. A lot of folks who are in need of gender affirming care, especially when they have to pay out of pocket, or even when they have insurance, have a lot of out of pocket expenses. And it's cheaper if you have it done with a professional that is not a licensed medical physician, but is a physician assistant or a nurse practitioner who's just as knowledgeable, if not more knowledgeable, about the needs of the individual. And so they're just doing this, to create another hurdle, another impediment to access.
Right.
So to that extent, I think that's problematic. And I don't know that they're going to be able to enforce that, because really what you have is the legislature coming in and telling physicians how to practice medicine, in effect. So they're trying to regulate them. So they're kind of on a careful. They're courting. They're kind of cutting the edges of boundaries, because they're very much coming very close to interfering with medical access.
Yeah. That's
for
one of
treatment.
that's one of the challenges too. Is it seems like what I've mentioned before you came on was that this is more like we're shooting at the wall everything we can, and whatever sticks we'll take, and then next year we'll try to strengthen it, make it worse.
Well, each year they progressive. I mean, this is not unusual. It's not unheard of, and it's not uncommon, and it's not, the first time that, they've done something like this without a hot button issue, right?
Right.
And you see right now, currently going on right now, where the GOP has, if anybody watches Face the Nation and CBS Sunday Morning and all the other political pundit shows that have stuff, they're talking to the GOP candidates. I listened to name people in particular. There are, Miss Sarah Huckabee and Nikki Haley in particular. They apparently both got the memo, along with I forget the other gentleman's name, about the abortion issue. Right? They're starting to backtrack and softball that. They're saying, "Oh well, there's no way 60 senators are going to get together and agree to pass a federal law that bans abortion," right? And that they're not pro-abortion, but they're pro self-determination, right?
Right. Yeah.
Except if you're trans. I mean, this really reminds me of the mantra back in the day amongst the Methodist Church where it said "open hearts, open doors, open minds," and I used to say, "Except if you're LGBT."
Right.
Recently, resolve that issue. But they no longer are anti-LGBT anymore. So, so there's that part. So they've done this before. They did it with same-sex marriage. They did it with the abortion issue. Now they're trying to backtrack that off, and now there's that's because they have transgender folks as fodder for the next election period.
Yeah. Do you ever recall reading in the insurance section of this that they're requiring medical ethicists to be a third person, that a gatekeeper that we have to go through, not just a psychiatrist and medical professional, but also a medical ethicist to sign off for gender affirming?
Yeah, I don't know what they're gonna. I didn't see that part. I didn't. I'll have to admit I didn't look at that really closely, but I'm not really certain how you're gonna find a medical, ethicist to begin with, because
no,
there's nobody who works in that position that I'm aware of anywhere.
Yeah, I think that's probably the point.
I think what they're trying to do is, create something that doesn't exist in order to say, in order to make it a further impediment. I really believe that if these types of, bills get passed, they're just going to get challenged. Normally they're challenged by the ACLU. And I think they're just going to get challenged and they're going to get stayed.
Right.
And so people need to understand if a legislation is stayed and not enforced by a court of law, that I don't know what this is. Let's be honest, it's not the people that follow generally. Okay, well, I don't know who we're. Anyway,
that's a friend out in Florida.
Okay. So I think that the basic problem, just so people understand how the legal system works, when a court stays legislation and says it's not enforceable right now until we get a final decision, what that means is that they've injuncted the law, right? And the basis of doing that is when they will go ahead and they grant an injunction to keep them from enforcing the law, it's based on the fact that the court it's almost like a predetermination of the outcome, right? If they don't think that there's a reasonable likelihood of success, they're not going to enforce it. Okay. So it's a great little way to see a precursor signal. It doesn't mean that's going to be ultimately the outcome, right? But the court, based upon certain principles of law, has reviewed the situation and said, based upon what I know about the law and what's going on and what they're trying to ask me to do here, I don't think their chances are that good of getting what they want, right? Right.
Yeah, I see that. And we actually see that a lot too around, not just in Florida, but everywhere. These the legislative pieces are held up by injunction, but then later on, the court determines that only part of it is valid and the other part is not. Then they get torn apart after that.
Right. And using Florida as an example, we saw this in the same-sex marriage bans, where the federal court, Northern District Court of Florida, they issued, a stay on, they said, the court said, you know what, you can't do this, right? But they stayed the ability to issue marriage licenses until the state had an opportunity to run it all the way up the pole up to the Supreme Court, right?
Yeah.
And then after that, and that was just to avoid a problem later on, like, if for some reason Supreme Court decided to hear it and, overturn the lower court's ruling. But he didn't, he's like, you got 90 days, and if you don't get it done by then, that's it. And that's how it went legal in 90 days. So there's a few exceptions to the rule. It's always good to, talk to somebody who knows, who understands how that really works. And you'd be amazed at the number of attorneys who don't really understand what it is. They'll just spout off whatever they hear the pundits say, because they seem to think that somehow they know what they're talking about. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never based my legal opinion on, groupthink. So, but some people do.
Expertise based on who's got the loudest mouth.
Yeah, well, I know how to read and comprehend, so I try to do that as much as possible, especially when dispensing, a legal opinion about, things.
So another part of that bill, though, the very first section of it, as a matter of fact, is all about license and identifications within the state of Florida, and that's the scary part for a lot of our people.
Yeah, and that's definitely intended to screw with folks. Yeah. So this is what I would say is that if you have let me see here, I'm going to get out my little handy dandy calendar device here. If you have a driver's license that will expire on or before, let me see here. Oh, wait a minute. It's not doing it for me. Okay. If you have a driver's license that's going to expire on July 22nd, 2025 or before that, what you can do is go to DMV and get a new license. Get your license renewed. Okay? And so tomorrow it will be on or before July 23rd, and so on and so forth until you get to the cutoff date. So if you look at Florida, likelihood is that if they were to pass that successfully, it would go into effect July 1st of 2024. So with that being said, if it goes into effect July 1st of 2024, then you would need, let's see here. Then if your driver's license expires on or before January the 2nd, 2026, okay, then you should go get your license renewed.
So what about the tags? Because that's something I'm seeing Bobby talk about over here too, is that if you have to go, you've already got your license, your driver's license physically good, but then you get a notice to renew your tags. How's that going? How's this?
It doesn't affect the tags.
It doesn't affect the tags?
No, you don't have to have a license to get your, to own a vehicle.
Right.
Now, if you have a state ID, you need to do it on or before July 1st, 2025, if it goes into effect on July 1st, right? Or January 22nd, 2025, right? So it'll be 12 months from now. So you can renew your state license, your state ID, not your license, but your state ID on or before, 12 months from now. Okay. You can renew it, if you're within 12 months of the expiration, anytime it's within 12 months. But if you have a driver's license, you can renew it anytime within 18 months.
Oh, got it. Okay. And then anything else that would be associated with having to have your driver's license, like as on the screen right now, voter ID. If you had to go get a voter ID, are they going to require you to show that driver's license? Yeah. I don't know.
You're going to need that, but you can use your passport.
Yeah.
Passport's an acceptable form of government ID to be used to authenticate your identification for the purposes of voting.
Okay. So that's really not going to have a big impact on the voter roll.
You can also use a gun carry.
Oh, you can use your gun carry permit, obviously, because it's gone through all this background stuff anyway.
It's a state issued ID.
Yeah. Fishing license.
No, your official license, because they don't have your picture on it. But you got to have a government issued ID that has your picture on it, so you can use you can still vote.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's just going to affect your ability to drive.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's their intention. That's their intention, really, is to mess with you to keep you from driving.
Yeah. Well, even beyond that, we are kind of talking about that they're going after all those people who are the idiots out there acting like us, who are doing crazy stuff, and the rest of us, though, who are, kind of already blended into the system. We're not too concerned about it. Does that sound?
Really, there's no. Okay, so it says that there's a couple issues with it. It says that you have to sign. If you sign, you have to sign and say that the gender marker on your ID on your driver's license is consistent with the one on your original birth certificate, right? But if you have a birth certificate that shows, they're not saying what constitutes an original birth certificate, right?
Right.
If you have a copy of your birth certificate from another state, who's to say that, what are they going to do? They can't go back and, they could try it, but then of course that's an overt state act that you can sue over, right? Because Florida is the only state in the union, folks, that has an absolute express right to privacy, right? So they're going to invade your privacy and with the intention to discriminate, because why else would they go back and check it? Are they doing that to everybody? No, they'd only be doing it to you. So, if you're worried about that, if you've already changed your gender marker with the state of Florida DMV, then it's likely you're going to have that information in the system, right?
Mm-hmm.
All you have to do is not sign that document, right? If you don't sign the document, if you don't sign on and make that statement, then you still get to keep your driver's license.
Mm. Oh.
You only get your driver's license revoked if you sign the statement and it's not true.
Right. So what action can we do now to try to put a wrench in all of this stuff, to slow it down or stop it?
Well, if you want to slow it down and put it up on the radar, and I've actually thought about doing this, is, the Department of Justice has a office in Atlanta, Office of Civil Rights. And you can file a complaint there and say that you're being, actively discriminated against.
But uh-oh, you're hearing the TV in the background. My sister's watching TV. Can you guess what the show is? Anyway.
I don't know. I can't hear it, but anyway. I think I can hear it, but I can't hear what it's saying. Anyway.
Yeah, so go ahead.
You could file a complaint to the Department saying that the individual legislator is using their government office to discriminate against you,
right?
For no reason, on no reasonable basis, and that it's meant to, harass and intimidate and embarrass, right? Mm-hmm. So it'd be an abuse of power under Section 42 USC 1983.
But we can only take those kind of actions, though, after the governor signs it into law, though, right? You can't do it prior.
No, I think you can do it now. The guy's he's making an overt effort to pass the legislation and get other people to sign on. He's using his government office as an arm of weaponry to oppress a group of people.
All right. So what would you suggest we do? Kind of have a class action thing filed with the federal civil rights?
To do a class action, everybody can just file their own application and get it on the radar with the Department of Justice. Let the Department of Justice decide if it's too early or not.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. If enough of us do it, it might get some attention. Might get some attention. You might mention it.
Yeah.
You can. And if you hear legislators, in government office who are making commentary in support of the legislation or make comments that make it appear that they're in, support, you can slap their names on there too.
Wow.
Governor DeSantis gets asked about it and he made some type of, positive, supportive statement about it, add his name to it. In fact, he's a lawyer, and you can file a bar complaint on him for discrimination against, people based on gender, and because that's against the bar rule.
Oh, we could do that without having to wait for this stuff to be signed into law. You just do it, and then let the
Yeah, you can
federal.
do it because it's a government actor in a government position who's actively participating in an act of oppression in an effort to violate someone's civil rights, right? Now, that doesn't mean that having a driver's license is a civil right. It's not. It's a privilege. Okay.
How
But,
do okay.
but, okay, it's interfering with other civil liberties, like, your ability to do business, right? To participate in commercial practices, to travel about the country freely, right? And
Mhm.
it's required in order to be able to get on you can't get on a plane if you don't have a valid driver's license or a passport, right? You have to
Mhm.
have a government issued ID that is issued under federal rules, right? Now they're going to add something else to it.
Hmm. Yeah. So we need to come up with some language that we can put out there to let people choose from as well how they want to pursue this from a civil rights case.
Yeah, it's gender discrimination is what it is.
Okay. Okay.
And even Judge Gorsuch would agree with that because he wrote the seminal opinions as it concerns discrimination both in the workplace and in education
So technically
based
we could
on
use
LGBTQ identification.
ah. So technically we could use his opinion on that ruling in our statements about civil rights violations.
Right. Well, in order for the government to pass legislation and implement laws based upon characteristics of an individual, they have to be rationally related to the purpose in which they serve
Right.
and must be a reasonable constraint. I think it
Hmm.
would be very difficult to argue that this type of legislation would be number one, rational, and number two, reasonable.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is the purpose here, right?
Right. Right.
What is the ultimate purpose here?
The ultimate purpose is to discriminate against transgender people.
Right, because there's no other useful purpose for the government that the government would rationally be, interested in trying to regulate, right? To limit someone from having a driver's license that's inconsistent with their appearance,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Wow. Okay. All right.
I mean,
That's
you would
good.
look off the change running around with a driver's license that said you were a guy,
Mhm.
and myself vice versa. So I think it would be really unusual for that, and people would be kind of going like, whatever. I mean, because that could get you in trouble, right?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Big time.
Or infinitum. I mean, when there's lots of people who can say pre-transition that they
Mhm.
when they had a license like that they got a lot of trouble from LEOs about
Oh,
appearing as something that was inconsistent with what was presented on their driver's license, right?
there's a lot of examples of that right there in this
Right.
community.
And, if your driver's license, has your picture and you look like a girl and and it says you're a guy and they're looking at you and you look like a girl and sound like a girl to them and vice versa, that's going to cause a dangerous situation possibly for someone, especially even if you're just making a simple transaction at the store. And so it's really meant to intimidate, harass, and embarrass individuals, really.
But those
You
are
know,
good. Those are good points right there. That's exactly what it's designed to do: is to harass and intimidate all these people out here whose
right,
IDs don't necessarily align with who they are when you see them or hear them, like me, for instance.
right.
If,
And it's going to cost the state a lot of money too. I mean, the thing is people don't understand that they passed this legislation, like when they did the whole, say yes on Amendment 2 in 2004 in Florida. And they passed this anti-same-sex marriage legislation that marriage was between one man and one woman, right? Um, that amendment. I mean, they were saying that it would cost the state nothing, right? Well, I mean, you should go back and look at that bill.
hmm,
It cost the state over $500,000 in attorney's fees.
okay.
Not just for the opposing side that won. Not
Hmm.
to mention the money they spent on personnel in the attorney general's office fighting that piece of crap.
Yeah. So
Okay,
the idea is to tie up the purse strings as much.
right. I mean, so you're talking like over $1 million was spent
Yeah.
on
Okay.
just like with the anti-adoption stuff for homosexuals to adopt. They paid one expert over $100,000 to be their expert. And he took that money and went on vacation with the 21-year-old cowboy, for about a month after that in Europe. Story, can't make this stuff up.
Well, Rusty, this has been very informative. Is there anything else you can think of we need to be talking about that? Let me see. We have the bill that is about the IDs, but we also have the other bill. There's another bill out there that seeks to penalize people who use words like calling someone a transphobe. There's a $35,000 penalty. Fine.
Oh, yeah, that's good stuff. Yeah. Well, you can't regulate speech. Yeah, you can regulate speech, but you can't, right? And so the thing they're trying to do, see, that's a violation of federal code, and that's not enforceable either, because the thing is that's what the Gorsuch case is about, right? You can't harass people at work. What they're trying to do is legalize harassing people.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
That's what they're trying to do. And the thing is, you can't do that. I mean, if you're violating, that's another overt act of oppression, right? When you're trying to pass legislation, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 protects us, folks, from having to be subjected to that BS at work. And they're specifically trying to pass something that says, well, you can't call people by a pronoun, that they ask for. You have to do the one that's matching their birth certificate at origin. Who the heck wants to do that? So you're going to follow state law so you can violate federal law and wind up paying big money? Yeah, you're going to have employers in Phenomenal ignoring the tar out of that one.
Yeah.
Right? Because nobody's going to want to wear their button and sling over that one.
Right. I'm just going to yell out at everybody, hey, you're a transphobe.
This is what, you can't curb speech. You can call somebody a homophobe and a transphobe. You can call people that.
Yeah.
Exactly. You cannot yell fire in a crowded theater, though. You can't do that.
Or a bomb on an airplane. You can't do that either.
That's right. You can't do that either.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say that before you mentioned it.
Reasonable constraints. So you get that's an example of a rational basis to disallow something like that,
right?
For good reason, right? That's a reasonable restraint on speech, right?
Right.
Because if you say it's a free expression of speech to say fire in a crowded theater and people get run over and trampled to death, egregiously you're killed, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm a photographer, and when that's harmful, and so that's a reasonable constraint on free speech.
So when I like to say this, and I don't know if I'm right or wrong in saying it, but there are no absolute rights. All of them can be abridged in some way. Or
one thing I've said, to people infinitum, to legislatures, be they big or small or medium, somewhere in between, is that there are no special rights in the United States. Okay. There are only equal rights, right? And the only way to make equal rights is to make sure everybody has them. And so, if you think that what I'm asking for is a special right, you have it, and you could not have it. So, in order to make it correct, you either take it away from you or give it to me, and make sure that we all have it, right?
Yeah.
Because it's got to be equal. And so in order to make it equal, that means nobody has it or everybody has it.
Right. Yeah, no one does.
My biggest opponents say, you know what? When you said that, it clicked with me. Right. If you've got it, right, and you believe in equal rights, because these folks, most of them all believe in equal rights, right? They're just afraid of you getting something, It's kind of like those of us who have siblings. I don't know if anybody here has siblings, but, if you have siblings, you're always worried about whether or not your siblings going to get more than you do when mom's pouring the milk in the glass at the table, right? How many of us stood there and looked carefully at the glasses, making sure that our sibling did not get more than we did, right?
Right.
Right. We had to split it up and or whatever, just making sure that you got your equal share, right? That's what it's about. People, the fear of missing out. You're really not that thirsty. You just don't want them getting more than you.
Proven to shorten colds.
Right.
Hey, there's a lot of philosophical arguments in that, right?
That's right. And I'm lactose intolerant to begin with, so why do I care, right?
Right.
I'm just worried about somebody's going to get more milk
Yeah,
than I want it,
that's a
right?
great way to
And I
describe it.
don't even want it.
Yeah, that's a great way to describe it right there too. I may have to use that in the next little letter I send out.
Right? I mean, who cares? You don't want milk anyway, right?
Yeah, come on
So
now,
sit down
Toby,
and
just right. You want that Goldilocks version, just right there, happy medium.
man. Who cares?
Oh my gosh, you've covered a lot of territory on these two things. Those are the two big ones down in Florida, and we're seeing them everywhere in many other states across the country too. So I'm going to be having these conversations with other states. But what you're suggesting is
Yeah.
turn this into a civil rights thing for all
Right.
of us. For both of
You
those
you
bills.
also need to, you also need to keep track of who is, who your politicians are and who your judiciary is. For those who live in Florida, I don't know if you're aware of this, but they just added a 6th District Court of Appeals, and DeSantis did that on purpose. It's no coincidence because one of the persons that he put in the 6th District Court of Appeals, he did that to add more DCA judges, right? And that's where they pick. That's where they pick federal judges from a lot of times. Hey, look. Hey.
He's playing the long game.
Yeah. So the thing is that one of the people he picked was Roger Ganim, and Roger Ganim was one of the attorneys who defended that clerk in Kentucky who said it was against religion, same-sex marriage licenses. He worked for Liberty Counsel, and if you go look at his descriptor on the 6th site, you don't see anything about that. But hey, hold on a minute. Hey. I can go back and find in the archives a local news channel where he was sitting on a question and answer thing with me and the local news media answering questions about same-sex marriage, making bad arguments that he lost later on.
Oh my gosh. All this stuff is really interesting to me because what's happening is we're seeing this narrative play out across the whole country. And there's one organization that seems to be leading this. There are 80 plus organizations that collaborated with them.
Shut up. Sorry about that. Sorry. Say that again.
That's all right. So basically what we're seeing, this slate of bills that are popping up around the country and the news stories that seem to follow them or precede them, it's a narrative that has been manipulated, controlled, and orchestrated by Heritage Foundation and different ones like that. And there's 80 plus organizations supporting them in all of this thing. But the president of Heritage said something this weekend on Fox and Friends that I thought was really, really funny. Somebody else pointed it out to me, a friend of mine. But what he said was, now he was talking about, he had been invited to sit on a panel in Davos, Switzerland with the World Economic Forum. And they're not friends. I mean, Heritage and WEF are not friends by any stretch of imagination. But he went over there and he asked the question of them. And he said, so, no, he didn't ask. He said this. He said, we are going to look at everything that Davos has done, all the policies you're putting out and all that thing. And we're going to tell our people over here to rescind all of them. And then he said,
yeah.
And then he said this, though. He said, and this was with Pete Hegseth Sunday morning, on Fox and Friends. And he goes, and figuratively speaking, I want to take a 2x4 and figuratively hit all these liberals in the face with it. And I said, and my friend pointed it out to me, and I said, oh, yeah, it just showed up in one of my letters. Roberts with a 2x4 going after trans people.
Yeah, I mean, he stands, they stand for everything by standing for nothing, really.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So that's what we're seeing with all this stuff and around the whole country, really. It's just everywhere.
The Heritage Foundation goes by. So what they do is once they get tagged as a hate group, right, then they change their name again. So like the Alliance Defending Freedom, and then they were Family First Foundation, and then they were something else. They They've been the Liberty Council, like the Liberty Council's right down there in Orlando, and that's where Roger Gannon was working for.
They're all, as a matter of fact, if you go look in the front of that Project 2025 thing that we've talked about, you'll find all those organizations listed: America First Legal, America First, Alliance Defending Freedom, Federalist, all these organizations. There's 80 organizations that supported Heritage, and Heritage has been around for 50 years. And they're doing the same kind of stuff. And, this narrative that's coming out here, going after trans people, well, they tell you what they want to do in that document. And they'll go, we want a colorblind society. We want to get back to that, good old colorblindness. They don't really mean that. What they mean was...
No, they don't mean that. What they want to do is, what they mean by colorblindness, they want to ignore anybody who's not white, cisgender, and straight.
That's right. That's exactly right.
That's what they mean by colorblind. It's like, whenever you hear somebody who says, "Oh, I don't see color," that means that's their way of self-anointing themselves permission to ignore everybody else.
Right. And then it goes even further than that whenever you tell people that not only do we promote colorblindness or assimilation, that's really what they're talking about, that they're talking about the three monkey thing. See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. Well, what they do is they don't want to see any minorities. They don't want to hear any minorities, and they certainly don't want you speaking.
No, yeah, well, they don't want to hear anything that's anathema to what their own beliefs are, right?
Right.
And then they want to use, they wrap themselves in a flag and hide behind a Bible and talk about what great patriots they are, when most of them, made all kinds of excuses to never enlist, and all that other crap. I mean, that's why you find very few veterans within the ranks, no matter how they feel about, LGBT people, to sit there and be really vociferous about it, unless they're, that crap crazy. But,
Yeah. Right. Well, Rusty, I don't want to take up all of your time.
Yeah.
Rusty,
how many people do you have on here today?
Really, you can't tell. There's two that show up over here, but on our website, you can't tell who's watching. There's no count from that.
I got you.
And from other places, you can't tell either. I think it's like, I'm not sure entirely, but I know on the website we have no earthly idea. There's no count that comes from it. But I do know this is recorded, and we'll play it over and over again if whoever wants to see it. And so I just wanted to say thank you so much for being here tonight with us and talking and engaging with us on this. And we'll definitely get some more things going this coming Wednesday. Hey, if you want to fly to DC with me, I'm going to stand up there in front of Heritage Foundation and go, "You don't want to talk to me. Why?"
I wish I could, but I can't. So, I don't need their cooties anyway.
Yeah. All right. Well, Rusty, thank you so much. And what I'm going to do is we're going to roll the outro and go from there, and we'll call it an evening, okay?
Okay.